In 2014, a Lebanese-Venezuelan man named Omar watched his life savings disappear overnight. Not stolen, not lost, just gone. Venezuela's currency collapsed so fast that the money he had saved for 11 years became worth less than the paper it was printed on. His shop was still open, his goods were still on the shelves, but the numbers on the price tags changed every single day, sometimes twice a day. Most business owners around him started cheating, overcharging, selling expired goods, lying about weights. Survival logic in a country where survival was genuinely at stake. Omar didn't. Same prices he always charged, same honest weight, same credit to customers who couldn't pay immediately, same bismillah before every transaction, same faith his Lebanese grandfather carried to Venezuela on a ship in 1923 when he arrived with nothing but a bundle of goods on his back and an intention in his heart. His Venezuelan neighbors noticed. They had always noticed. 3 generations of Omar's family had been trading in this same district of Caracas. 3 generations of fair prices, kept promises, and open doors. And 3 generations of quiet questions from curious Venezuelans. What makes your family like this? The answer was always the same. Islam. And that single answer, repeated across 100 years of honest trade, has converted more Venezuelans to Islam than any mosque, any scholar, or any organized dawah effort ever has. This is the Crescent Files, and today we uncover a country where Islam arrived in chains, survived underground through the Spanish Inquisition, and came back through the front door, carrying a bundle of goods and a reputation that changed people's religion. Venezuela, 28 million people. The worst economic collapse in modern Latin American history. Over 7 million citizens fled since 2014. Hyperinflation is so severe that prices change daily. And inside all of that chaos, between 100,000 and 300,000 Muslims holding their faith and their community together. But here is the question nobody asks and nobody wants to answer. If Islam spread in Venezuela through honesty and integrity during good times, what happens to that reputation when the country collapses and survival becomes the only rule? Is Venezuela's Muslim community still that same example? Or has the crisis changed something deeper? Let's go back further than anyone expects. Before the Lebanese traders, before the mosques, before anyone called this country Venezuela. The year is the 1500s. Spanish slave ships are crossing the Atlantic. Their cargo? Human beings. Torn from their homes in North Africa and West Africa. Families separated, lives destroyed. And among those enslaved Africans, Muslims. Men and women who had memorized the Quran, who knew the call to prayer by heart, who faced east every day of their lives, brought to a land that had never heard the word Islam, in chains. The Spanish Inquisition was waiting for them. Any sign of Islamic practice meant punishment. The Quran was forbidden. Prayer was forbidden. Even Arabic names were dangerous. These Muslims had 2 choices: abandon their faith completely or hide it so deep inside themselves that no one could ever find it. Most chose to hide it. They prayed in secret, whispered Bismillah before eating, kept their faith alive in silence. The same silence that Muslims in Spain had survived for generations before them. And then, like so many hidden things, it faded. The generations passed. The Arabic dissolved. The prayers were forgotten. Islam disappeared from Venezuela without leaving a single visible trace. Or so everyone thought. Fast forward to the late 1800s, a new wave is coming. The Ottoman Empire is collapsing. Lebanon, Syria, and Palestine are unstable. Families are desperate for a new beginning. Ships are leaving for South America. And somehow, exhausted, hopeful, carrying almost nothing, Lebanese and Syrian families arrive in Venezuela. Locals call them Turcos, Turks, because they carry Ottoman documents. The name is wrong, but it sticks. These newcomers don't arrive as scholars or preachers. They arrive as traders, humble traveling salesmen called coteros, carrying bundles of goods on their backs, walking door to door through Venezuelan villages and towns, selling on credit, trusting people they had never met. And that trust changed everything. Venezuelans who had never met a Muslim began noticing something. These traders were different. They didn't cheat. They didn't overcharge. They kept their word even when it cost them. People started asking questions. What makes you like this? Where does this honesty come from? The answer was always the same: Islam. And that answer, not given from a pulpit, not from a book, but from the simple act of honest trade, began converting Venezuelans to a faith they had never heard of. If you have never seen Islam through this lens before, this is exactly what the Crescent Files uncovers every week. The stories hiding in plain sight. Subscribe now so you never miss one. Entire commercial districts in Caracas began forming around these Muslim traders. One area became known simply as La Turquería, the Turkish Quarter, shaped entirely by Muslim commerce and culture. A faith that arrived in chains, survived underground, then walked back in through the front door, carrying a bundle of goods and a reputation for honesty. Nobody planned that. Nobody organized it. Nobody funded it. It just happened. Because that is what genuine faith does. It finds a way. So what does Islam look like in Venezuela today? Not in history books, not in statistics. In real life, on a real morning, in a country that is genuinely falling apart around you. If stories like this are changing how you see the world, this is exactly what the Crescent Files does every single week. Subscribe now and never miss a hidden story like this one. Now, back to that real morning. You wake up in Caracas. The electricity went out again last night. It comes and goes. Nobody knows when. You perform wudu with whatever water is left in the bucket you filled yesterday, because the taps don't always run either. You pray Fajr in the dark. Then you go find food. Not halal food specifically, just food. Because in Venezuela right now, finding any food at all is the daily battle every single person fights. Supermarket shelves that were full in 2012 are now empty or nearly empty. Basic goods that cost 1 bolivar once now cost millions. For Muslim families trying to maintain halal, the challenge is doubled. Find food first, then find halal food. In a country where the economy has collapsed so completely that people are leaving by the millions. Over 7 million Venezuelans have fled the country since 2014. That is one of the largest migration crises in modern history. And the Muslim community has not been spared. Families that built businesses here over 3 and 4 generations, packing up, leaving, watching everything their grandparents built slowly dissolve. But here is what makes Venezuela's Muslim story different from every other country we have covered: the converts. Over 3,000 native Venezuelans have chosen Islam in recent decades. Creole Venezuelans, indigenous Venezuelans, people with zero Arab heritage and zero cultural connection to the Middle East. They didn't convert because life was easy. They converted while their country was collapsing, while inflation was destroying savings overnight, while family members were leaving, while the future felt completely uncertain. And still, they chose Islam. Think about what that means. When everything around you is falling apart and you still choose a faith that asks more of you, not less, that is not a casual decision. That is the deepest possible conviction. The Sheikh Ibrahim al-Ibrahim Mosque still stands in Caracas. Its minaret is the tallest in all of Latin America, rising higher than the Catholic cathedrals just a few blocks away, higher than the Caracas synagogue nearby, pointing upward in a city that has been brought to its knees economically. 5 times a day, the call to prayer rises over Caracas, over a city that first heard Islam from enslaved Africans who were forbidden to pray, over streets shaped by traveling salesmen whose honesty changed people's religion, over a community that has survived colonialism, inquisition, economic collapse, and mass exodus, and is still here, still praying, still fasting, still teaching their children Arabic in a Spanish-speaking country, still choosing this faith, not because it is easy, but because for them, nothing else has ever felt more true. In the end, one word explains all of it. Nia. Intention. Venezuela tried to erase Islam through chains in the 1500s, through Inquisition in the 1600s, through assimilation in the 1900s, through economic collapse in the 2000s. It is still here. This is the Crescent Files. Tell us in the comments, did you know Islam in Venezuela goes back to the slave ships of the 1500s? Drop yes or no right now. Let's see how many people had absolutely no idea.